Welcome to same, different, where we take an original movie and then also watch its remake and give our thoughts on both of them. So today we have the ever classic Airplane and its actual original movie, which is called 0 Hour.
Zero Hour is a 1957 disaster film directed by Hal Bartlett. The plot centers around a commercial flight from Toronto to New York where the pilots and several passengers fall ill due to food poisoning. The only person capable of landing the plane is an ex-World War II fighter pilot named Ted Stryker, played by Dana Andrews, who has fear of flying due to a dramatic past experience. With the help of a radio operator, Stryker must overcome his fears and safely land the aircraft in heavy fog. That radio operator served with Stryker and hates him. Both Airplane and 0 Hour are the same movie. One's a comedy and the other one is a drama. The stories are beat for beat, almost line for line, exactly the same. I thought it was uncanny watching it, and I think it helped me enjoy 0 Hour more. I thought 0 Hour was great.
Here's the thing about this. I realized something watching these movies. I guess I saw Airplane when I was younger. It's been a good handful of years back in the 80s. And I realized I definitely watched these the wrong way. I wish I could go back and I wish I could actually watch 0 Hour before I actually watched Airplane. Because as I was watching 0 Hour, I realized that there were things in it that I would have never understood if I hadn't watched it that are in Airplane. References to it, which Airplane does a good job of making them to where they're funny. But the moment I really see them in 0 Hour, it makes that punch a whole lot better. For example, I always thought it was kind of funny in a wacky way where the spear hit the map in Airplane. It didn't make any sense why I would do that. But then when I was watching 0 Hour, it has that scene where you see the map in the background, and the way the map is designed, it looks like there's all these black spears that are going into it. And that was the first thing I thought it was, oh my gosh, those look like spears. And then that scene from Airplane came in. Another example of this is a lady that turns down the whiskey and says, certainly not. And I wouldn't have understood why they then, she stored the cocaine afterwards until I heard that line and how she reacted. I wish I could go back in time and do these in the opposite way. Now, as far as the movie itself, from what I understand, it's a B movie. It's not like a classic movie or anything like that. I don't know why, because it is just absolutely fantastic. Even though I knew what was going to go on, the fact that it's going in a tense drama direction, it definitely had me hooked to what's going to happen in it and how it's going to happen. Even after watching Airplane, I wanted to see how everything falls into place here. And it also does something that Airplane does the opposite of, that I think actually works in the favor of 0 Hour is that 0 Hour doesn't have anyone that I know of that's a famous actor. When everybody comes on, there's no one that steals the spotlight.
You know what? It's a Canadian movie.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have to be told that. I could just tell by references in the movie. There was a lot of Canadian references. I'm like, this is a Canadian film, which is why most people haven't heard of it.
Gotcha. Okay. So, because if you think of like Airplane, like every single time Leslie Nielsen comes on, he is the spotlight of that specific scene. But there's not one moment where there's an imbalance between any type of character, like, this is the doctor's time to shine. This is Stryker's time to shine. They all just meld together so well. Now, another thing with this movie that I do want to say is that it did a lot more in describing why this situation is here. Like, why is he in a rush to get back with this woman? And why he's in this predicament, how he's not able to hold a job, he's not able to have a steady life. And I actually liked that the kid in this was actually his kid rather than the other's kid. I understand Airplane, they couldn't do that because they need to keep that comedy aspect. This gave a lot more backstory, and you could look into the characters and their motives a lot better in this.
Ted Stryker in this one, he's married, his wife, who is planning to leave with her child, and he just gets on the plane. If you ever bought airplane tickets on a flight that's boarding, it's probably not a cheap, I would assume.
And also, you can't hold down a job.
Yeah, so he's already broke and takes the flight with them.
Also, like, you have to decide lines. I probably wouldn't have got without an Airplane if you're not watching this. Being that it's from that time frame and how the planes were, how they're all propeller planes and everything, that also makes that scene in Airplane where the planes are crashing and it's got the really old planes. It kind of makes that make sense too.
When they made Airplane, they had to buy the rights to 0 Hour. because the movies are so similar. And then their lawyers went and said, they're too alike. You guys, it'd be cheaper just to buy the rights. They said, okay, let's buy the rights.
0 Hour is a great movie that you can just sit down and watch even over and over again. It's one that would go good on like TV or HBO or whatever and just play it every day pretty much. Just a good movie to sit down and just soak in.
Airplane is a classic 1980 comedy film directed by Jim Abrams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker. You might know them from The Naked Gun. It's a parody of the disaster film genre, specifically spoofing the 1957 movie classic 0 Hour. The plot follows a commercial flight from Los Angeles to Chicago instead of from Toronto to New York, where the crew and passengers fall ill due to food poisoning, also from fish. The only person capable of landing the plane is a neurotic ex-fighter pilot named Ted Stryker, spelled slightly differently than it is in 0 Hour, this time played by Robert Hayes. He must overcome his fears with the help of the flight attendant played by Julie Haggerty, who we remember from Noises Off, and a quirky doctor played by Leslie Nielsen, who we have never seen in any other movie, and he does not have any accolades attached to him whatsoever.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am, and stop calling me Shirley. The film is known for its slapstick humor, witty dialogue, memorable performances, especially by Leslie Nielsen as a deadpan doctor. It's considered one of the greatest comedy films of all time.
I didn't realize this until I was watching the credits, but we talk about Abrams, David Zucker, and is it Jason Zucker?
It's David Zucker and Jerry Zucker.
Jerry Zucker, thank you. David and Jerry were actually in the movie. They're the ones that play the role of when the plane's coming in, the guy's guiding the plane in, signals over to tell the other person where to go, and the plane turns and crashes through the window. Those two are the Zucker brothers. David is the one that asks for directions, and Jerry is the one that's guiding it in. Their mother is in the movie too. I think her name is Eleanor or something along the lines of that. She plays the role of the woman who's putting the makeup on her face where it's going all over the place. I didn't know if you caught those at all, but I did watching it this time. Airplane is really the opposite of 0 Hour. Everything is flashy. Like I was saying, people steal the spotlight in this one, and it's already great. Everyone knows it's great. There's not much else to say. But I will say this. For instance, I've already mentioned Leslie Nielsen steals every spotlight he's in. Robert Hayes plays Ted Stryker.
Yes. In 0 Hour, Stryker spelled Stryker, and in this movie, it's Striker.
Robert Hayes, he was an interesting choice for this because I feel like he fits more into the 0 Hour mold than he does into the Airplane mold because he's the main character, but he doesn't stand out. Every single scene where there's somebody else in it, they steal the scene from him, it feels like, which is interesting, but it works. Julie Haggerty. I don't know anyone else that the last name fits so well.
She's kind of cute,
but I'm guessing she's probably in her 20s or maybe early 30s in this, but she always looks like she's 30 years older than what she actually is, especially in Noises Off. She looked very old in Noises Off. And even though she can steal the scenes, she has this character and she does this in Noises Off, so she may be either typecast or this might be her personality, where she just seems so weak. Her presence seems so weak.
Oh no. Oh, what's gonna happen? And then they say cut, and she's like, all right, give me a cigarette and a beer.
She's like the perfect character for like if you need a princess who needs saving.
She's got that voice. Yeah, she's not Hollywood hot. She's like the girl who's in the next cubicle is kind of cute.
And the girl who says guess my age and you're like 45, she's like, dude, I'm 22.
You'll never guess how old I am. This movie here, we got Robert Hayes, Julie Haggerty, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar does a cameo.
Yes, I think that's a little awkward having him in the movie.
It's one of those mistakes that they do where they kind of date the film now. Some fathers trying to watch this with their kid and show them this great movie. They have to stop everything and explain who this guy is. Someone had to explain it to me when I was a kid who Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was, and he literally just stopped playing a couple of years beforehand.
So I do also want to talk about a couple other actors. That would be Lloyd Bridges and Robert Stack. The two of them working together. And the reason why is because they did something interesting in this movie after watching 0 Hour is they took the character that normally would be the character Robert Stack is playing and kind of split the personality between the two, because it's Lloyd Bridges that talks about quitting the wrong week to stop smoking. It actually worked pretty good because I think Robert Stack has a weaker presence overall because he ends up having a more serious feel to him than what Lloyd Bridges is doing in a comedy movie. But then again, it's kind of weird to hear After that, here, Robert Stack is Ultra Magnus because I'm waiting for him to be like Optimus Prime, municipal bonds, 401k, things like that, after, seeing him in Airplane. Now, the person, though, that takes all of the scenes, not in the plane, but in control room, would be Johnny. I think that guy is probably the most iconic character in Airplane because they took him to such an extreme compared to 0 Hour. 0 Hour, he was just like, hey, Johnny, can you go get us some coffee? But they just blew that character out of proportion in Airplane. It was great.
I got a feeling that they probably just let him go nuts.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Steven Stucker.
Air traffic controller Johnny Henshaw Jacob.
Whoa, he was in Trading Places.
He died in 1986 at 38 years old.
Now, going back to Airplane, there is one thing that I'm not all for, like, censoring or anything, but I think at this point is bad, like really bad, even for me watching it. What is the captain's name? Peter Graves. Peter Graves does a great job, but I think choosing the line of putting "Have you ever seen a grown man naked" is really disturbing to hear. I don't want to censor it and take it out, but it's just cringe. I don't want to hear that.
How about Airplane 2, the sequel?
I actually kind of like Airplane 2. It's not as good as the first. It has a lot of good lines.
The Zucker brothers did not return for it at that time. They were writing another movie. So Leslie Nielsen. You know what the Zucker brothers were doing? They were writing Police Squad for television, which ended up later becoming The Naked Gun, and they took Leslie Nielsen with them. So that's why he wasn't in the second film. And the second film is mostly just a recap of the first film. Now they're in space.
The second one has a lot of great lines. I tend to get them confused, like which lines in which movie.
Favorite line in both of them is, you're putting the passengers in jeopardy, and then they go to them and they're playing Jeopardy. That's in the second one. And I always remember that when I'm watching the first one and the joke doesn't. It was almost like they just did Airplane 2, and it was like writers who didn't do the first one who had ideas of stuff they would have done if they did write the first one.
Or maybe it's like Airplane if it would have had a director's cut. If you haven't seen Airplane, it's really best to watch 0 Hour first.